Hello there, I am Ivan Lepkin. I will be talking to you about Isaac Newton in these very brief 3 or 4 minutes about why he was cool and why we should study him in modern contemporary courses alongside Leibniz and Hobbes and Locke and all those dudes. Early life. So he was born January 4th, 1643, in the town of Woolsthorpe, Lincolnshire. The little house I have provided here is actually the home in which he was born in, and it's when you Google Woolsthorpe, it's the one thing that comes up. Not much going on in that little town. He was very unhappy because his mother left him to be raised by his grandma when she got remarried, which made him pretty unhappy. Yeah, he showed very little sign of the genius he was going to become in his later life. He went to Trinity College, Cambridge from 1661. He basically taught himself everything he knew outside of the curriculum by reading a lot outside of the curriculum. And then 65 to 66, Cambridge is closed because of the plague, and Newton goes back to his little town of Woolsthorpe, where he is very, very productive. He makes foundational advances in calculus, inventing it for himself, and then later in his life he would have this whole famous feud with Leibniz about who invented it first. He also really got into optics, and of course he develops his theory of gravity at this time. And then he doesn't actually publish anything in 65 or 66. He only publishes in 87. He publishes his Principia Mathematica, which it is primarily a work of physics and math, but he does a lot of writing about nature and space and time and God's relationship with the physical universe. And some today will consider Principia Mathematica as perhaps the single greatest book of science ever written. Pretty incredible. So how does he align with his contemporaries? He was a product of the scientific revolution, and he shared its core spirit. He really firmly believed that you could understand nature through observation and math and scientific methods. He was also very, very theological, as many were. He saw his natural philosophy as a revelation of God's work, and he actually really went to great efforts to understand and decode the Bible. He wrote over 1 million words decoding the Bible. He actually famously tried to use math to figure out when the second coming would happen. He also dabbled in alchemy, which I guess was not as weird as it is today. And how he didn't align was he challenged the Cartesian framework, which dominated academic thought at the time. Cartesian framework held that everything in the universe operated through mechanical contact, and Newton's theory of gravity went against that, kind of. He thought it went against it because it implied action at a distance. The apple somehow falls, and that is action at a distance, which is gravity. And he himself was very uncomfortable with this because he was a good Christian, and that would have been considered magic. So he also challenged Aristotelian physics, which also dominated the academia. Aristotle thought that the cosmos had qualitative differences between the terrestrial and celestial matter, but Newton's laws of gravity, of course, went against that by unifying the two under the same mathematical rules. Newton is one of the most important figures in the history of science and philosophy, I think, because he is a perfect marriage of the two. He's a philosopher, but he's deeply ingrained in science and makes incredible advancements in science. And I think the two fields are forever destined to live side by side and forever destined to have incredible effects on each other, effects which we see to this day. And it all started with Newton. And I think if we study Leibniz just because he has a metaphysics, but Newton doesn't, that's probably not why we study Leibniz instead of Newton. But Newton was a lot less of a philosopher than his contemporaries in the classical sense, but I don't think that takes away from his credentials as a philosopher. And I think he's so important in the history of philosophy and science that we really should study him and study how he affected both disciplines. I've been Ivan. Thank you.